in this last game on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, part of that speaks to just how bad the Cardinals' defense is. But Carson, had, I want to say, on runs, he broke or caused 18 missed tackles, and on his receptions, broke or caused three more tackles. So 21 total missed tackles in a game, just of Chris Carson. That doesn't count, the tight ends that got away, the wide receivers that got away for extra yards and stuff. So again, part of it goes to the ineptitude, for the most part, of that Cardinal defense. And again, it's partially a testament to Chris Carson, because not only did he break all those tackles, he didn't lose the ball at all.
Right.
Not even a losing the ball after the whistle had blown. The guy never dropped the ball the entire game, and just his ability to really come back after really a terrible first three games, come back, have over 100 rushing yards, break 21 tackles and just be the beast that everyone expected him to be, I think is really a good sign for things to come for fantasy owners, knowing that the Seahawks want to continue to try to establish the run and ride Chris Carson as much as they can.
All right, let's go from Chris Carson to Davante Adams' injury. I think the Packers are fortunate that injury wasn't as bad as it appeared to be.
Yeah, with Davante Adams, this is a shame, really, because Davante Adams was one of those guys that, I was one that figured that predicted him to be the number one overall fantasy wide receiver by the end of the season. Now, he had to stay healthy the whole time, whole season, for that to happen. But then when you start out this first three games and just there's no target share, there's no consistency in that Green Bay offense. I mean, it was sort of run heavy, but at the same time, they couldn't even decide which running back they wanted to use. And so, I mean, it goes back to Matt LaFleur's, in my opinion, struggles with Tennessee when he couldn't decide whether to use Derrick Henry or Dion Lewis. And so now they've somewhat got a little bit of clarity, and they finally decided, 4 targets probably is not enough for Davante Adams. We should probably get our number one offensive weapon, other than Aaron Rodgers. We should probably get him the ball more. And look what happens: 15 targets, 10 catches, 180 yards.
Right.
And then it looked like he got his toe stepped on a little bit, or some in the kind of the way he came down. I think in the end they called it turf toe. Mm-hmm. Is what the injury actually is, I believe.
Right.
It's a strain in his toe. He is going to most likely miss this game against the Cowboys, which is really, in my opinion, a big damper for the Green Bay offense. However, this is a little bit of a boost for Jimmy Graham. I think that he is a good streaming option for this week. I want to say on Yahoo, before waivers go in, he's only 37% owned in Yahoo leagues. He's about 35% owned on ESPN leagues. Right. So I think that them wanting to establish the pass to some of their better players. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is good, but he's not going to carry a team. I think if they can get the ball more to Jimmy Graham, and then when he comes back healthy, Davante Adams, they'll be in good shape. But this kind of puts a little bit more of a damper on Adams' ability to put up good numbers for at least a couple more weeks.
Well, one would think that they definitely miss Randall Cobb, don't you think?
You would think, yes. Here's the thing: Randall Cobb struggled to stay healthy, and then even when he was healthy last year, Marquez Valdez-Scantling outplayed him. And even you take the first 4 weeks before Geronimo Allison got injured, Geronimo Allison was outplaying him. After 4 games, Allison was on pace for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, I mean, he had played really well. And then, now that they've involved Marquez Valdez-Scantling a little bit more into the offense, he's kind of taken over that number 2 role. And, Allison is more the slot guy. But, again, going back to the offensive philosophy where they're trying to be more run-heavy, we'll kind of see how that plays out and what's going to work best for the Green Bay offense.
Okay, since we're on the Cheesehead situation, just an update. The Milwaukee Brewers lead 2-0 over the Washington Nationals into the first inning. So that update came across our desk. Brewers lead the Nationals by a score of 2-0. All right, I got two more questions. First of all, let's talk about Golden Tate's return from a 4-game PED suspension. Do you feel he'll be a factor with Daniel Jones under center?
I think that he can be a factor with Daniel Jones. The question is, how are they going to utilize Golden Tate? Because his entire career, he's been a slot receiver. Well, they already have a slot receiver in Sterling Shepard, who's played, I want to say 70% to 79% of his snaps have been out of the slot. I don't think that they'll move Shepard out to the outside because that's not really the type of receiver he is. And Golden Tate isn't really an outside receiver either. So I think he can be productive. I think at this point, I don't think he's the 1,000-yard guy that he used to be with the Lions. I think that he could still, as of this point, missing a quarter of the season, I think he could probably still put up 600 yards over the next 12 weeks. So about 50 yards a week. Maybe come down with 4, 5, 6 touchdowns over the season. So that's respectable. It's wide receiver 3, kind of a flex play weekly. I think with having Daniel Jones as his quarterback is going to help, other than having Eli Manning. Jones has a fresher arm, a better arm, stronger arm, more accurate. And so, really Daniel Jones, we're just working on the mental side of it and not making the rookie mistakes with throwing into coverages or fumbling the ball. So I think that Tate can be in deeper leagues, he can be a solid fantasy football asset. If you're only playing in like an 8 to 10 team league, I wouldn't even bother picking up Golden Tate. You're going to have a much better production out of other players. So.
Okay, well, it's good to know. So, all right, let's talk about Melvin Gordon. He didn't have a carry on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. But at what point do you think Melvin Gordon will make an impact?
I'm still hesitant to say that he's going to make a huge impact this next week. I think that he will make some sort of impact. I just saw an article up on Google that Austin Eckler still wants to be the starter. And he's played well enough to be the starter. Let's be honest. He has played very, very well. I want to say in terms of fantasy production, he's still like a top, I want to say he's like number 4 or 5, or he's in the top 5 in terms of fantasy production. I think that Gordon is eventually going to be the starter again. It may be 2 to 3 more weeks before that happens, just to make sure that he's in game shape, and involved, and fully involved in the offense. So I think that he will eventually be the guy. And for those that drafted him and were willing to hold on to him and could do all right with their fantasy teams until he came back, they should be set up for a good rest of the season.
Okay, well, that's fair. All right. At what point or another do people start taking Gardner Minshew II seriously before he starts getting picked up by fantasy owners?
I think that he should be. Well, this is going to depend completely on the size of league that you have.
Right. Okay.
I'm in a 16-team superflex league. So a superflex means that that you can have a second quarterback as one of your flex players. That's a specialty league, really, to be completely honest. So in those cases, he's obviously going to need to be owned. He should be owned in 2 quarterback leagues. I think I want to say right now I'm looking at it, he is quarterback number, I think he's like, in terms of fantasy production, he's about quarterback 16. So, I mean, he's still somewhat usable. He's for the most part, matchup dependent for right now. Just a couple of names that he has really only one big name that he's outscored so far. He's outscored Baker Mayfield on the season, and he has outscored Andy Dalton and Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff so far on this fantasy season. He's right behind Josh Allen of Buffalo, Tom Brady of New England, and Kyler Murray of Arizona. So he's put up okay numbers. Again, he's still matchup dependent because of how good some of these other quarterbacks are and the type of seasons that they are having. He is a deeper league streaming option, or if in a 2-quarterback league, he should be owned as a second quarterback.
Okay, and one other final note. We have probably about 2 minutes left before Anthony Wood comes on, but why don't you go ahead and preview, Ryan, what's ahead for our weekly show, Fantasy Football with Ryan Skolrud, for tomorrow night's broadcast?
Well, in tomorrow night's broadcast, we will be going over some of the matchups I do and don't like for this next week in fantasy football. We will be looking a little bit at some of the value plays for DFS this week that I've been kind of looking into, whether it be on Yahoo or on DraftKings, for those of you who play DFS. So that's for the most part, that's kind of be what we're going over. And we'll dig into some of the nitty gritty and some of the stats as far as some players are concerned, and who we should be afraid of continuing to play, and who we should be a little more bullish on in terms of whether they're still on waivers or guys that are maybe on the cusp of becoming big time players.
So, are you saying to the audience out there that you might have a few sleeper picks that they might want to think about?
There's a possibility that I might have. Again, digging into the stats and kind of seeing where things are pointing, but there could be a sleeper pick or two in there.
Hey, listen, you know what? Like I said, you know your stuff here, and one thing that came to mind while we have another minute or so, just give me a short minute answer. How does Leonard Fournette do against the Carolina Panthers in North Carolina?
I think he runs pretty well. I think the offensive line is finally getting themselves in gear. Putting up 225 rushing yards this last week. Again, I'm not personally a huge fan of Leonard Fournette. I think that his hamstrings are too volatile. I'm just waiting. I'm sitting back and waiting for one of them to go so that Raquel Armstead takes over the job. He is a very talented player when healthy. Okay. And I think that, seeing him at the end of that game on Sunday really getting in his lineman's face, because his lineman was getting into the face of some of the defenders, and really just trying to taking on a leadership role and telling one of his own guys to get his head back in the game and do what's right for the team, I think shows a great amount of growth even from last year, where he was getting into fights and everything, on the sideline and everything. Right. So I like seeing the growth in terms of the leadership. Again, just in terms of how healthy can he stay, because he's had health issues, right, going all the way back to being at LSU.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up right there but just one little update. The team that used to be the Seattle Pilots, the Milwaukee Brewers, now have a 3-0 lead. The Brewers have all their runs via the home run. So a 2-run home run the first and another solo shot here in the second inning. So, all right, Ryan, thanks for being on, and we will pick this conversation up tomorrow. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you.
All right, thanks for having me on the show again.
You're very welcome. Our pleasure. Thank you. So as we wait for Anthony Wood to come on the program, he's got some pretty interesting updates that are in store for us. I think the one thing that a lot of things that we're kind of wondering about is Vontaze Burfict, who is proving that he's going to lose a lot of money if he keeps taking cheap shots. So, Anthony's going to go over that, and he has a lot of other interesting notes in store. So, looking forward to having him on momentarily. But meanwhile, it's interesting that we have the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Washington Nationals, and I just find it unbelievable that, here we are, the baseball postseason is upon us. So, but again, this is one of those kind of things where we have a lot going on, and we're looking forward to being able to go ahead and keep you informed. But another thing I should point out is Anthony Wood is on the South Florida Tribune hotline. And Anthony, thank you very much for being on the program, buddy. What kind of good stuff for you?
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for the call. Glad to have you on the big show.
Absolutely. Couldn't be more excited to talk NFL